Do you have an overwhelming sense that things are not fair in your relationship? Whether you ask the right questions, approach at the right time, things just never seem to work out the way that you were hoping that they would? What if I told you that the key to experiencing more clarity and empowerment in your relationship is rooted in fundamental principles of contract law? I love contract law and we all are involved in contracts by the time even with teenagers, yeah, often we have these contracts that we enter into. Hey, if you do this, then I'll do that, right? This is the most ancient human form of relationship. But the problem is most of us don't consider or actively think about our relationships as contracts. And so when we run into friction, when we come into a situation where we kind of feel taken advantage of, then the issue is often rooted in contracts. So, really quick, what is a contract? A contract is an exchange of promises concerning something specific. And there's a little give and take on both sides. That is the most basic understanding of what a contract is. And one of the biggest mistakes in our navigating relationship contracts in our personal world is that we're not always defining what we agree to. There is a lot of pressure in the personal space, in the intimate space, to keep people happy, right? To make sure that we don't cause any ripples in the waters, we don't make waves. But the reality is that often sacrifices the clarity of what it is that you are asking for and what you are needing in the relationship. So clarity is a really, really big opportunity to sit down, treat it as a business meeting. The same type of clarity you would approach in the marketplace, at work, in the office, at your business is the same as that clarity you should be approaching in your marriage and with your children. The second really, really big mistake is implied, and it's very, very closely related to the lack of clarity of terms. So, an implied contract happens under the law when over time the parties engage in certain type of behavior, even when they never spoke about it, even when they never wrote it down, even if they never signed off that this is the way we do business together. And in the law, we call it a course of conduct, right? So in relationships, and my favorite example is when I first began homeschooling back in 2020. I was very excited to show up for my child in a different way. Virtual learning was a disaster. We were all there, right? In 2020. And so we began this journey of my entrepreneurship and my child's homeschool at the same time in the very same season of life. And after about 3 months, I found that I hated the thought of food. I hated the thought of grocery shopping. I began feeling stress every time it was time to prepare meals. And what I didn't understand or realize at the time was that I had not calculated the additional lunch shift that I picked up as the principal and head teacher of our homeschool. And it was stressing me out. So I approached my husband. I said to him, "Hey, can we have a contract talk?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I want to know, when did we agree that I would be the only one that did the grocery shopping, the meal preparation, and the cooking?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought you liked those things." You see, there was an implied contract between us. And it wasn't until I brought it to his attention, it wasn't until I advocated for my needs as circumstances were changing within our family, that he realized that his involvement and his effort was required at a different level for the sake of everyone's needs being met. And it required a compassionate confrontation. Of course, I came jokingly, like, hey, well, I need a new deal, right? But we can engage in these discussions and we can renegotiate in non threatening and very open and inviting ways. Like, can we develop new connection around solving this problem together? And so, if you're struggling in any of your relationships, whether it be at home, whether it be at work, whether it be within one of your friendships, then maybe it's time to examine your contract. What is it that you agree to in your relationship? What defines your relationship? What is the expectation that the other person has on how you show up in the relationship? And have you ever really talked about it? Have you ever specified the terms of your relationship? I hope that this conversation helps you to look at your relationship challenges in a more disciplined framework. It's tempting to want to be emotional and touchy-feely about our emotions, and contracts and contract analysis can seem cold. But the reality is, contracts and really well written contracts are the foundations of really happy relationships. So I pray that you take this to heart, challenge you to examine the terms of any relationship that's feeling tense and see if you might be able to renegotiate. And we'll talk about that in another post. Be blessed and encouraged.